It's time to take a drive around the world of business on Business Incorporated. We normally do this in 55 minutes. And for this episode, this Friday episode, we're going to tell you that there's a certain date now for the student portal in Nigeria. From May the 24th, students will be able to access the student loan portal here in Nigeria. Also, we'll be assessing the impact and expectations of some of the initiatives of the Tinubu administration. It's about a year since he got into office. And then we'll leave Nigeria, head to South Africa, where 52% of prepaid meters have been recorded. And that means perhaps the path to electricity stability in that country is closer than before. I'm Edie John Mekwa. Let's do this together, beginning with the global oil space. We see that prices were up on Friday, with global benchmark set for its first weekly increase in 3 weeks, on signs of improving global demand amid stronger economic indicators from key consumers. China and United States led that. We look at the numbers right there. It's green, 0.47% at $83.66 a barrel. WTI from the United States, $79.45 a barrel after it went up 0.28%. We know that inflation numbers from the United States still has some kind of influence on that. Also, the agreements with OPEC Plus, well, to continue that voluntary cut beyond January. And then we see that markets are also boosted by China's industrial output growth, which was at 6.7% year on year. Of course, China is the second largest user of oil and determines prices. From oil, we go to metals and look at the number. Gold prices appeared set for a second consecutive weekly gain on Friday. After that inflation number from the United States, it fueled expectations that the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates this year. September is where a lot of fingers are pointing to. So we see right here the numbers, beginning with gold, which is the head of all those metals. It went up 0.1% at $2,379.14. And then we go to silver. That's on the flip side. It's down 0.2%, $29.53. And palladium also was down 1.1% at $982.77. We certainly have other metals. I think we have platinum also. We see spot silver. Spot silver is down 0.2%, $29.53. Platinum also was up 0.3%, $1,060.15 after it hit its highest since May 12th in 2023 in the previous session. Generally, metal gained 7% so far this week. So if you're an investor in metals, I'm sure you're smiling at this time. Then we come to Nigeria, where we see a lot of company news. It's a period of AGMs back here and a lot of countries. Shareholders of Seplat Energy PLC are being rewarded with a dividend of 39 Naira 30 kobo for every share that they own. The board chairman, Udoma, made this announcement at the company's 11th annual general meeting for the year ended December 2023.
It's the 11th annual general meeting of Seplat Energy, and the session takes a hybrid format.
I hereby propose that the appointment of Mr. Udoma
Under reviews the performance of the company for the year ended December 2023, which saw a revenue increase of 11.5% from oil and gas sales, as well as an increase in average daily production of 8.3% to 47,758 barrels of oil equivalent per day from 44,104 from the preceding year. How does this affect the average shareholder?
I hereby propose that the final dividend of 3 cents, which is the equivalent of 39 Naira 30 kobo per share, recommended by the Board of Directors, be accepted by the shareholders as a final dividend for the year ended 31st December 2023.
After about 2 hours of the AGM, with several resolutions passed, the management speaks further on the many successes of 2023.
With all of these advantages in 2023, we then, of course, the board recommended a special dividend of 3 cents per share. And that 3 cents special dividend is in addition to the 12 cents per share that was awarded to the shareholders in 2023.
With 14 new wells completed across Seplat-operated and non-operated assets, the outlook for 2024 appears even brighter.
We went through the $1 billion turnover. Q1 2024, we published another set of strong results where our production is just short of 50,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day. And 2024 is set to be a strong year for Seplat in terms of our production and our efficiencies around that.
Seplat is doing well, and the future is very bright for Seplat. That we are committed to a lot of initiatives that will help in terms of better results for Seplat and better returns to all our stakeholders.
While shareholders look forward to a more rewarding future, the management says all that is required to make it happen is already in the works.
Well, it's not just AGMs that corporates are holding at this time. Digital payment solutions provider Visa West Africa has organized a one-day industry risk and compliance workshop for players in the Nigeria's digital payments environment. The event, which was held in Lagos, seeks to update its partners within the ecosystem about current trends, opportunities, threats, and comprehensive strategies in risk management and compliance.
Visa, the trusted global leader in digital payments, hosted business and industry executives as well as risk managers in Lagos to share knowledge on how to effectively manage and enhance business payment activities in a secure and sustainable way.
So how do we ensure?
The one-day workshop also identified ways to help players in the digital payment ecosystem implement practices that comply with Visa's risk and compliance programs, as well as reduce the risk of non-compliance penalties.
To ensure that we secure
Visa's head of risk management for sub-Saharan Africa speaks on strategies it will implement with stakeholders to ensure the safety of the payment ecosystem within the sub-region.
Part of those strategies include the engagements in market, like what we're having today, meeting with key stakeholders, decision makers in the C-suites, the CROs, the compliance officers, and even the business executives to elevate the conversation of security at the decision makers level to ensure that eventually everyone is committed and makes the investment in time and resources to build a secure payment ecosystem.
On the spot, the Vice President and Head of Visa West Africa expatiates on strategies that can be implemented to secure the future of payments in Nigeria.
There are three key steps that can be taken to address the security of payments in Nigeria. The first one would be through financial literacy. It's important that consumers are aware of how the payments can be safeguarded. There's a lot that Visa is doing in enabling that enlightenment and awareness from the consumers. The second piece is also working with governments to ensure that the right policies and regulations are in place that protect consumers, at the same time creating an atmosphere that will drive innovation in payments and enable more people to be able to expand in new ways of paying. And I think the third thing would be around working with partners in the ecosystem, like the banks, the fintechs, regulators, and other players to ensure that solutions that they are bringing into the market caters to the need of the consumers, as well as ensuring that they are safe and they're secure.
With the rising threats to various forms of digital payments around the world, particularly on the African continent, this workshop will position Visa as the preferred industry partner for risk, compliance, and payment matters.
In the real sector now, the need for funding to boost production by small businesses may be overrated at this time. This is the perspective of the chairman of Baobab Microfinance Bank, Mr. Rotimi Oyekanmi. Mr. Oyekanmi, who was on Business Morning earlier today, believes that efforts should be intensified towards educating farmers, especially on the basics of their operations.
I think we actually overrate funding as a requirement for SMEs. And the reason I think we overrate them is because there are more important challenges that face SMEs than capital or even funding, right? One is knowledge of the industry where they're in. People go into industries without even understanding the industry itself. I've involved in businesses where you look at their conversion rate, and their conversion rate, to be frank, is so suboptimal that we can't compete, right? So we then find, and that's why you find a few of these development agencies are seeing how you can support SMEs by giving them information. So you can have the money, right? Even if interest rates are low, you might find that you are not producing in a way that you can be competitive. And so one of the things that we have tried to do is, apart from providing the funding, right? Because you have to provide funding at market price. If you say you want to give me a deposit, you won't take a suboptimal rate because I want to give money to people at suboptimal rate. And also I have to be competitive. I also have to have a sustainable business, because if I give money at a rate lower than how much I'm getting it, I'm in trouble. So what we think is that there is issue around infrastructure, there's issue around knowledge. I am convinced that number one actually is knowledge.
Now, as we begin to count down to May 29, where it will be exactly 1 year since President Bola Tinubu took office, let's take a look at some of his initiatives in 1 year. There you have some of them. I think we have about 21, but we're going to deal with about 10 if time allows us. And then we can see a series of initiatives from revolutionizing Nigeria's infrastructure sector through PPP to the tolls for all users, which just started, the ban on sand dredging, 4-week deadline for reviewing visa policy to attract more tourists into the country, approval and installation of training of operators in the disabled aircraft, the SPV that was just announced a couple of days ago, SPV for fiber optic cable, about 90,000 kilometers and all of that. So we'll see expectations placed side by side with the impact so far. And we're going to be having this conversation with the lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, Mr. Emmanuel Onasami. Mr. Onasami, good afternoon, and thank you for your time.
It's so good seeing you this afternoon again. How are you today?
Good to see you too. So, if we're to go through all of them, I'm sure we don't have enough time for that. But, let's look at some very outstanding, interesting ones, like the PPP for infrastructure. I do not think it's President Tinubu who started it. I think it started in the last administration, especially the tax for credit for infrastructural development. Have we had a lot of activity in that area in this administration 1 year into it?
Okay, thank you very much. If you follow the trend of governance, PPP becomes attractive, especially when government is struggling to raise the kind of revenue that is needed for development. And if you look at the circumstance Nigeria as a government has found themselves from a revenue perspective, you understand that the government, cannot really fund all the infrastructural development or activities that is needed to stimulate the economic activity for recovery. So look at the example of Oyo State government, even at the subnational level, where they had to partner Shell, in raising $100 million for that gas initiative. So what the government is really saying is that, yes, we understand the urgency, to re-stimulate the economy and move towards recovery. But if we don't have all the needed fund, to do that, then we have to go the way of PPP. We've seen a number of PPP projects in the past, but I think the government is sounding a recommitment, to unlock, PPP initiative in this region, particularly for infrastructure development.
Yeah, but do we have some specifics of PPP in the last 1 year?
Yes, so like I mentioned, Oyo State just got into one with Shell, and from the subnational level, we've seen a lot of PPP arrangements in the power sector, where government has to partner with private sector in shoring up the power generation for some specific economic activity or some specific zones. Also, we've seen PPP arrangements, with some key infrastructure development, and you've seen a lot of incentives that mirrors, government partnering also with the private sector, like the roads incentive scheme, where private sector take up road development for tax, tax recovery in the future. Those are variants of PPP that government has also, entered into in order to unlock development in the face of lack of revenue. So there are pockets of PPP, around. We may not be able to itemize them in details, but like I've said, the government has seen the renewed commitment to say that we need the private sector to really get to the recovery level that the economy needs at the moment.
Yeah, well, we hope to see more PPP that'll be more inclusive, because even for the infrastructure one, I mean, people have said, oh, it's only the very big companies like the Dangotes that seem to be participating. Perhaps if the requirements are lowered, it will allow more people get into that space. But another interesting one happened this week, where out of the Federal Executive Council meeting, tolls at the airports, and now for all users, no more elites and no more demarcation. But I mean, my question with that is, how are we going to see the implementation? Who is going to regulate it? Who is going to follow up on that, knowing, some of the sentiments around how things are done in this country? Who is going to ensure that, yes, the president's convoy has 10 cars, and those 10 cars pay, nobody's afraid to stop the car to say, you haven't paid for it. Saying it is one thing, but actually implementing it is another kettle of fish.
Okay, just like, we've always had in the past, I think we have beautiful policies, we have beautiful laws. And, this is one of the things that government is putting on the table to communicate very strongly that every revenue that can be gathered or garnered, this period is needed for the purpose of economic recovery. And that's why some of the initiatives out of the 21 initiatives are focused on increasing revenue. Having said that, everybody will now pay. So, it is the commitment to seeing to that is implemented, just like you have highlighted, is also very, very important. There are ways that this can actually be done in order to, minimize bureaucracy or our culture of human worship that may want to, limit the implementation. Technology is a way to go if at all the Ministry of Aviation is interested in seeing to it that those tolls are collected without fail. So technology, e-tax, deploying e-tax that are funded in advance, and everybody has to access through those e-tax platforms. I think those technology are already in place, and if the government is serious about implementing this, you don't necessarily have to go the route of cash collection. Technology is a way to go in implementing this seamlessly.
Yeah, if we really want to do that. I think another interesting one, Mr. Nasomi, is the visa policy to facilitate access of more tourists and all of that. But I don't know if we have our eyes on tourism in this country. People coming into the country come to take advantage of loopholes, mostly, not all the time. For business, we've seen illegal mining and all of that. But when it comes to tourism and the issue of visa, we have a lot of undocumented individuals in this country, especially those in the neighboring countries. So I don't know what's going to be different about this, actually.
Okay, one of the things that actually promotes illegality can actually be the complexity involved in the process. You understand? If your process is a bit difficult to crack, people then begin to look for alternative of getting access into the environment. Looking at it from the perspective of neighboring countries, I think we have the ECOWAS framework that allows people into Nigeria so far they can present that they're a member of the ECOWAS state, and I believe that's still very much in place. But I think the perspective that the government is actually looking at this initiative from is for promoting additional foreign direct investment into the economy. One of the things that potential investors wants to see is ease of access into your jurisdiction. And if there's a lot of bureaucracy in getting visa to come into your country, that can potentially hinder the free flow of FDI that we, desperately need in time like this. So I think from the tourism perspective, we may not be able to get much if we don't revamp our tourist facilities and monuments that we have, But when it comes to business and trade, I think the visa policy will be able to encourage more business activities and get FDIs. But from the tourism perspective, there is more to do from the perspective of the government to revamp our tourist infrastructure and communicate them to the world for attraction.
I really wish that the government will make public the targets and then the timelines, for this, because when we just leave it open and say, oh, there's going to be a review of the visa policy for the country, then you don't know really how to track it. If it's been done, has it now allowed more businesses or business individuals to come into the country or not? No, sometimes when these things are open-ended like that, you cannot really measure it. And somebody did say, if you cannot measure your yields or measure your output, then you can hardly appreciate where you're going to or where you're coming from. But I mean, let's end on this because you wanted to say something, Mr. Nasami?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, to be fair to the Ministry of Interior, I think a significant improvement has been done in that aspect, trying to digitize a lot of this process, and I think there is already a timeline that was communicated, in one of the initiatives to say that, all this pipeline technology deployment, this is the time to put it out there and now let people, start using them. I think there is already a product in the pipeline that the government is ready to deploy for this particular initiative. So we can only wait to see that.
Yeah, and then we can wait to see the percentage of improvements. That's what I meant by the target and the timeline. Exactly. In 6 months, we hope to have improved by 5%, by 6%, then you're able to know if you have hit that target or not. But anyway, another interesting one is the CNG. Recently, the president made a pronouncement on CNG vehicles and all of that. I do know that the Nigeria Customs Service were to purchase 200 CNG-powered vehicles, costing about 12.5 billion. And I know when we're having that conversation where the president said it, the thing is, how many CNG vehicles do we have with the president, with the ministers, and the executive? Then we can now go, of course, to customs and some other ones. I guess that is what we would like to see before I would change my vehicle. I don't know about you, Mr. Onasomi.
Okay, from a technical feasibility, I think there is no fear. I don't think there is any safety concern. With
but there are. We had. I don't know. You heard of the story some weeks back. About a gas-powered vehicle. Because you have the cylinder in the car. That was the scene, and that was the source of fear. Yes.
So those are isolated cases. Just like you also have cases of recalls, even with petrol automobiles. There are some manufacturing fails that will definitely happen. But technically, on the technical feasibility, if all the technicality involved in developing a CNG bus or vehicle is put in place, I think the safety concern is not something that cannot be managed. I think this is a policy that we are already overdue for, and I think the government needs to be more pragmatic in the implementation of this, because this is something that the automotive industry in Nigeria has the capability to deliver on. And I want to strongly believe that customs will not be approaching, foreign suppliers for this, but work with the stakeholders in the automotive industry in Nigeria to get these CNG buses, available. We cannot be crying for dollars and still be spending dollars to acquire the CNG buses. So I want to hope that, players within the automotive industry will collaborate with the necessary stakeholders at custom and other ministries and agencies of government going forward, because there is one of the major initiatives that going forward, ministries and MDAs are only going to be acquiring CNG buses going forward. So this is a good opportunity for businesses in the automotive space to strategically position themselves, demonstrate capability to deliver on this, and then deliver, so that we can limit the pressure on Forex.
Yeah, we certainly do hope to do that. Thank you so much, lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, Mr. Emmanuel Nosomi.
Thank you very much, Ine. It's always a good time with you. Bye.
Good to have you too. Bye-bye. So I'm sure in the coming days, it's May 29th, just around the corner. A lot of conversations reviewing the campaign promises versus what we are seeing in reality of President Bola Tinubu. And of course, we'll be doing that right here on our business programs. Let's take a break now. FX has some messages for us. And then when we come back, we head to the markets, the money market, to stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. We head to the markets now with Anita Edits.
Yes.
Anita, you're back in the red.
Back in the red. But all at the same time, it's not just maintaining the red, it's going back and forth like a pendulum swing. Last time I checked a couple of minutes ago, the markets were still, that's our local market, was oscillating in between the green and the red.
I wonder who will win at the close of
exactly.
trade today.
And don't forget, it made a springboard movement back into the green on the back of Airtel Africa's gain.
Yeah, I remember last week, Airtel Africa also dropped the market.
Exactly. It's such a heavyweight. It's such a heavyweight stock.
Yes, and that was the one that gave us the surprise. It took us back to 97,000 when we thought we had scaled through that day.
Yeah, and then we're still hanging, back above, back into the 98,000, but still within a thread because anything can happen, and we'll just go back to the 97,000 points. But at least it's still barely comfortable at that 98,000 on the back of some in between bargain hunting and profit taking. So, so far the market is still 0.18% negative, while year to date it's 31.27%. So let's give our viewers all around the world a closer glimpse at what the market is talking about. That's the equities market. For Nigeria's stock market, ending Thursday's trading session in the green, but then here it is at just around the flat line of about 0.08%. And the same thing for the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the JSE Stock Exchange, 0.48% On Thursday, we had seen banking stocks maintaining the lead in that decline for Nigerian stock market, as well as some other, all the other counters. 4 out of the 5 counters that we track were in the red. Only the insurance counter was in the green. Now, for the Egyptian Stock Exchange, we see very much in the green for close on Friday, 3.27%. A strong close there for that stock market. While Kenya Stock Exchange on Thursday was very much in the green, 0.19%. And now let's talk about the Naira. Naira is still in the news, not for the good reason, as we can see here, that the local currency is still suffering on the against the dollar. Take a look at the Nigeria Foreign Exchange Markets rate at about 1,533.99 Naira against the dollar. That's as at the close of Thursday's trading session, and that's against the 1,559 Naira 2 kobo, which it closed on Wednesday. But for the Nigeria Autonomous Foreign Exchange, which is the spot FX window for the foreign exchange market, or Nigeria's foreign exchange market, it was up by 2.65% at about 1,501 Naira 2 kobo, all from the previous 1,549 Naira 90 kobo against the dollar. For the BTC rate, the Naira weakened to about this level, which you can see on your board there. And at the same time, the customs FX rate, that's a charge for clearing goods at the ports, it has increased all the way from what it was previously at 1,492 Naira against the dollar to 1,530 Naira against the dollar as at Thursday. So we will be looking out for how it closes Friday, closes the week, whether on the weaker side or on the firmer side. We'll be talking to our analysts to give us more details about that. Now, before we bring in our guest, we'll be talking about the fixed income market, which for the treasury bills market, we saw bullish performance there, while for the bonds market, we saw a bit of a muted performance. So now let's bring in Ebube Uneze, who's a fixed income and forex dealer with Access Bank, for more details about the Naira as well as the fixed income market. Thank you for joining us, Ebube.
Thank you for having me, Anete. How are you today?
Couldn't be better. I'm chilling with the market. Okay, all right. So now you can see Naira. Well, sometime earlier this week or in the middle week, we saw that the central bank had announced that it had approved in principle 14 IMTOs, as international money transfer operators, to play in the market in a bid to boost the foreign exchange inflow into the country, and we've seen this rubbing on the country's foreign exchange reserves. But how is this playing into the currency markets?
Not 19. All right, thank you for that question. So we recall that closing last month at the 2024 spring meetings organized by the IMF and World Bank, the governor had mentioned that they were working together with other to boost foreign exchange flow into the country. In light of that, they noted that they were having strong partnerships with the IMTOs to ensure that they double the remittance flows to Nigeria. So we believe that it's on the back of this that the central bank gave this approval in principle to these 14 IMTOs. The intention is that you have a lot of entrants in that market, such that they would there's a lot of competition, which will lead to a reduction in the transaction costs. So once the transaction cost reduces, so that means if our guys in diaspora see that it's now cheaper for them to remit funds through official channels to Nigeria, more people will be encouraged to transfer their funds back to Nigeria. So I think that is the game plan of the central bank, and all this is geared towards ensuring that they boost the foreign exchange flow. So we note that foreign remittances is a key component of our external reserves. This is in addition to foreign direct investments and flows from foreign portfolio investors, as well as the the remittances. So the central bank is focusing on this segment, which is a slow but sure and critical segment of foreign flows to ensure that overall the foreign exchange, the external reserve position is boosted to ensure that the Naira against the dollar remains stable.
Okay. Okay, so Ebube, so let me ask you this question that first, we'll be expecting by Monday that the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee will begin its 2-day meeting, and that will be the third meeting so far, and the MPR rate has risen from what it was 18.5% to about 24.75%. Now that the inflation has also climbed higher, now do you expect that the Monetary Policy Committee will hike rates, and what impact will this have on the fixed income and the money markets?
Thank you, Anette, for that question. So on Wednesday, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics released the CPI figures for the month of April, and we saw inflation climb to 33.46, which was lower than the expectation of most analysts. A lot of people projected that inflation figures will print at 34%. Even though that there is an increase, we know that on a month-on-month basis, it appears that the inflation rate appears to be decelerating. So I believe this will form part of the information towards the decision of the MPC at the MPC meeting scheduled for Monday and Tuesday. General market consensus is that we should expect another hike, but we believe that it will not be as aggressive as we had seen in the two previous MPC meetings. The governor had earlier on, sometime last week, noted that rates will remain at elevated levels until inflation is brought within the targeted range. Okay. So we still expect a hawkish stance, even though at a less aggressive note.
Okay. Okay, Ebube, so I think we'll leave it there so that we can focus on other markets across the world and give an idea to our viewers. But thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you for having me.
That was Ebube Uneze, Forex and fixed income dealer with Access Bank for the fixed income market. Now let's talk about the Middle East. We see Saudi Arabia stocks as well as Qatari indexes in the green. But before we get there, we see the United Arab Emirates, the two stocks there, Abu Dhabi, Dubai FM, one in the green and the other in the red, no thanks to profit taking and bargain hunting. Now over to Saudi Arabia, which we talked about. We see the likes of Saudi Mining Company as well as Saudi Cement Company reporting their Q1 earnings results. Some other results are coming in. Q1 results, Q1 earnings season is gradually winding down for many companies around the world, but this is how it printed for the region's biggest market, while the Qatari Stock Exchange also closed in the green for Friday, 0.77%. Now let's move over to the United States, where we see the stock futures there for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which had risen to about 40,000 for the very first time in quite a long time. So it was 39,998 points. In the red, 0.03%, while this S&P 500 is, all of them, the three of them are trading in the flattish side. And this is coming after the Dow Jones, the 30 stock index had closed Thursday's trading session in the red. Now, for more details about Thursday's trading session on Wall Street, let's bring in our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird.
The U.S. stock market took a bit of a dip on Thursday as the Dow Jones was down at 0.1%, the S&P 500 down at 0.2%, and the heavy tech Nasdaq down at 0.3%. Many investors were a bit surprised at the downward slope on Thursday, as Wednesday was a rally day, as many investors were hopeful that after the news that inflation was slowing down,
We sincerely apologize for that break in Maria's analysis. Okay, so, but now let's talk about the Asian stock market. They've already closed Friday's trading session, but it was a mixed close for Asia. Most of the Asian stocks that we closed, that we tracked there, and this is coming amidst some economic data releases across Singapore, Japan, as well as China. For the Nikkei, we see the Nikkei, it has dropped all the way from that 40,000 points, which it was comfortable sometime early in this year, but at about 0.34% in the red, while the South Korea's Kospi down 1.03%, and this is coming after the country's unemployment rate data shows that the rate remained unchanged at 2.8% in April, while the Hong Kong Hang Seng Index very much in the green, 0.91%, almost 1% there. Let's move over to the other side of the market. We see Shanghai 1.01%, while Australia's S&P ASX 200 in the red, 0.85% for the close of Friday's trading session. So, Amy, that's it for all the markets around the world in 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
That was more than 10 minutes, Anita. But you know, the interesting thing is to see that in the market yesterday, after the inflation numbers from the United States the day before, yesterday we had all greens. But I mean, that's effect is beginning to wane out as we see, you know, I think reality beginning to set in some of this market. But thank you so much for your analysis. All right, let's go to Berlin now, where Russian president is their concern because they're very close to Ukraine. And we know that there's a war going on between Ukraine and Russia. Now, the president, Vladimir Putin, visited China this week, and it's all to get the support of China in spite of the war. We have Chip Honda Chimbelu joining us to give us details of that visit and how it could affect the war. Hi, Chip. Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Well, the economic relationship is extremely important for the Kremlin. Russia became the world's second most sanctioned country after it launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. After several European and US companies left the Russian market to avoid Western sanctions, Russia started buying more Chinese goods. And it also became China's leading crude oil supplier. That has boosted trade between the two countries, and Russia-China trade surged more than 25% on the year in 2023. It reached $240 billion. But despite that, it is a lopsided economic relationship. While China accounts for around a third of Russia's total trade volume, Russia only accounts for 4% of Chinese trade. But it is still an important relationship for both countries. It allows Russia to get access to goods that it needs for its war economy, and it gives China more clout on the global stage. Western leaders have actually been pushing for Beijing to play a bigger role in helping resolve Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine.
And now what can we expect from their relationship, China and Russia?
Well, the fact that the Kremlin needs Beijing more is certain, but it is highly unlikely that we will see China change its course when it comes to relations with Russia. The world's second largest economy was targeted by new tariffs on various goods by the White House this week. Chinese producers will continue to look for new markets for their exports. And if there's more tariffs on Chinese goods in the US or the EU, we may very well see China exporting more to other countries. China is now the main tech supplier for Russia. A recent study by the US-based Center for Strategic and International Studies found that China has been Russia's most important supplier of microelectronics since summer 2023, and some of them could be used in military equipment. That's why there is concern among NATO members that Russia may use the weapons to target other countries.
All right, Chip, thank you so much for that, and we do wish you a great weekend. We head to Africa now, where in Nigeria, the federal government has announced May 24th as a date for the opening of student loan portal. This is contained in a statement issued by the management of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFund. The body is saddled with the responsibility to manage and disburse the loans to interested students. According to NELFund, the opening of the application portal marks a significant milestone, the commitment of President Bola Tinubu fostering accessible and inclusive education for all Nigerians. On June the 12th, 2023, President Tinubu signed the Access to Higher Education Act 2023 into law to enable indigent students access interest-free loans for their educational pursuit. in any Nigerian tertiary institution. Still in Nigeria now, recently the United Nations Development Programme in Nigeria, the UNDP Sustainable Finance Hub, in collaboration with the federal government and European Union, announced a successful facilitation of investment totaling $15 million for 3 groundbreaking enterprises in Nigeria that are contributing towards the Sustainable Development Goals. This achievement marks a significant milestone in advancing sustainable development through private sector contributions. There's now the responsibility of leveraging these platforms such as to accelerate the achievement of SDG goals, and the financial sector does have a role to play in this.
There are globally labeled ESG risks, environmental, social, and governance risk. It is a trendy subject right now, not just in Africa, but globally. And it's usually coming as a requirement from either lenders or financiers to make sure that the action or the fact that the facility they provide to financial actors anywhere in the world or on the continent does not have an impact on either the planet or the people, on the social part, and adheres to sound governance framework. Usually, you will see that these are perceived as imposed frameworks, and banks, especially commercial banks, especially in the corporate investment field, have really adopted it and are trying to educate their clients so that they also are more accustomed to it, and actually it has become a precondition to access some of the facilities. But if you bring it down to microfinance bank, I'm not sure the subject has started resonating. Ourselves, we do it because it's part of our DNA. We want to be very cautious on the type of activity we finance, and we have to abide by an exclusion list. So there are things that we will not finance because it goes against our impact agenda, which is heavily reliant on what they call the triple bottom line, people, profit, and planet.
Sustainable financing there in South Africa, ESCOM is saying that its key revision number rollover project is progressing well, with 3.61 million, which is 52% of the 6.9 million prepaid meters already recoded as of May the 15th, 2024. The process, which is monitored daily through a dashboard, offers customer support and has plans to sustain the rate of recoding before the deadline, which is November this year. While recoding is done on existing meters, ESCOM notes that the process of buying electricity remains unchanged, and customers can purchase from major banks, online platforms, vending agents, as well as fuel stations. Perhaps that could be the path out of electricity scarcity for South Africa. Now let's head to the crypto space and see what's going on there. Today, there was a sitting in Nigeria. We know that the issue around the Binance executives in Nigeria is not over yet. So there was that ruling. Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, refused to grant bail to Tigran Gambayan, an executive of Binance Holdings Limited. Both of them were held, and then one has escaped. Justice Nwite held that he is likely to jump bail if bail is granted to him. And the company and the executive were arraigned on a 5-count charge bordering on money laundering before the court. Defendants, of course, have pleaded not guilty to the charge. More on this, of course, as the story progresses right here in Nigeria. There's also another story from the United States, SEC, but let's look at the numbers before we get there. We see BTC has been doing well in the past few days. It's gained 0.17%. This is in a couple of hours ago, $66,385.03. Ethereum is also following suit. It's above 3,000 now. Solana, Cardano. So basically, it's more of a green Friday today, except for pockets of red that we have. But the market leaders are obviously in the green at this time. And there you have it. That's Nigeria refusing bail to the Binance executive we told you about. That was in Abuja in the courts today. And then the other one is the SEC, the United States overturn the SEC ruling in the United States right there. And we have Onua Obodo, our Friday client, joining us to help us understand the implication of this. Hi, Onua. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon for having me.
Yeah, so tell us about this ruling in the United States where it's been overturned, that SEC rule requiring banks to keep customers' digital assets. What does it mean, really?
Yeah, on the matter of that, Senate overturning that rule is actually welcome. This is just another system that SEC wants to use to quickly allow crypto exchanges and transactions to be on security-related transactions. So the Senate was quick to actually move on that platform and overturn that situation, because having crypto as a security has always been debated on the issue of who owns or who oversees the affairs of the crypto transactions. So, but bottom line, crypto has always been treated as a commodity and not as a security. As a security means actually that means it's going to come under federal laws and regulations, which the CFTC, which is the Commodity Future Trading Commission, is the main person that's supposed to be on the regulation of crypto transactions. But SEC has already been coming in from one source to do that before the Senate actually overturned it. And this is a very good sign for the market, because it means that the crypto transactions can be on an autonomous basis without any interference from the government.
Yeah, because part of that says that the Commission's rule requires banks to keep customers' digital assets on their balance sheet with capital maintained against.
Yeah, if the crypto transaction is seen on the balance sheet, that means investors can get to see the activities and the transaction with that, and with that they will need more activities of the crypto transactions to come in light in the balance sheet, which is like indirectly forcing it to become a security rather than a commodity. So for now, the Senate have spoken so far, and they are still doing one or two things regarding that aspect. But we all know that crypto transactions are treated as commodity rather than that of security. It's just like the traded as a gold, oil, maybe crude oil or something on the trading platform. It's totally different from the fiat-related transactions associated with banks and Federal Reserves.
Yeah, well, it seems that it's the opposite that's going on back here in Nigeria. P2P and all of that are getting bashing. But Onua, we have to draw the curtains here. Thank you so much for being a part of the program today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So that's it. A lot is still happening in the crypto space here in Nigeria, and I think we're still growing. There's a new boss on the SEC. A lot of people think he comes with positive vibe for the crypto space, but we haven't seen that yet. Anyway, that's it on the program, Business Incorporated. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can always watch this episode and all the episodes on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/channels web. And Ladi Williams will be here 7 p.m. On Saturday, capital market, and then we'll start this circle again on Monday with fresh and good information for you. John Mekwa. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.